See, girl, you gotta get yours and don't even trip about it. Just make sure your rent's paid. You know what I'm saying? All that love, marriage, and happily ever after crap, it ain't real. It's sex, lies, and violence, honey, straight up. Oh yeah, he's gonna hit you. You can't take it personal, though. Life ain't nothing but pain. You just can't let them see you feel it.
I want Mama.
We're breaking the curse. Hello, this is Chris and Carol Green, and once again, we're with you to talk about a very special, very unique, very, very important subject, and that is before you say I do. And just as our intro told you, yes, we're here to break the curse. Many of you have experienced some very difficult things,
very painful
things in your life, and some of those values you have already begun passing on to your children because in some ways you may have accepted that that's just how life is.
Or at the very least, you're living out those misconceptions that you received due to being hurt.
Yeah, and so part of our role here in Fruitful Life is to break some of those curses, break some of those negative patterns that have been established in many hearts and in many homes. And so before we get started, there's this little prayer that we always begin with. So it's going to come up on the screen, and I want you just to say it along with us as we begin today. Let's get started right here and now. It begins like this. It says,
Lord, I pray that the word today would find good soil in my heart. I reject the spirit of offense. Where the light of your word exposes my sin, I do not take offense. I will repent and turn to you, my heavenly Father. I reject condemnation. Your word says, there is therefore now no condemnation for those that are in Christ Jesus. This word does not come to condemn me, but it comes to heal me. I reject accusation. Satan is the accuser of the brethren, and this word does not come to accuse me or abuse me. This word exposes Satan and his lies, and I choose to believe and receive the truth. God says in his word, blessed are my eyes, for they see, and my ears, for they hear. For many prophets and righteous men desire to see what I see, and did not see it, and to hear what I hear, and did not hear it. Open my eyes that I may see wondrous things from your word today.
And so we're ready to get started, beginning to talk about what you need to know before you say I do. Now, everybody may not be viewing this video or attending these sessions because you're planning on getting married anytime soon. You may not even be thinking about getting married at all, but you just kind of want to understand the dynamics between men and women.
How each one thinks and how a healthy interaction should go.
Yeah, and so here, are you ready? We're just going to get started. We want to talk about how our relationships really grow from the time that you first meet a person to all the way to the point that you may decide to get married. You may consider moving all the way to the permanent state of marriage. So, but there's a process that every relationship really should go through, and unfortunately, we live in a world where various steps are skipped. We tend to skip steps because of the enjoyment of the relationship, because of the possibilities, because of pleasure, and so. But when you do that, important things are often missed, and so we want to just really show you how relationships really develop, and how they should develop, and as we begin in our opening prayer here, if you skip some of those steps and you've moved a little bit too fast in some of the relationships that you've been involved with, maybe you'll find out as we're going through these steps where certain things went wrong, or why some of the problems that did develop. You know, sometimes, Carol, when people break up with another person, sometimes they'll spend a lot of time either faulting themselves, trying to figure out what I did wrong, or they'll go to the other extreme and they'll think that they didn't do anything wrong and it was all the other person. And we can boldly tell you that anytime there's a breakup, there is fault on
both sides. There's we come into a relationship with preconceived ideas, with experiences that color everything that the other person does and says.
So we're saying this to you not to bring condemnation, not to make you feel bad or anything like that. This isn't religious judgmentalism where we're pointing the finger and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? If you're going to be healed, there are certain things that we all got to face about ourselves
and understand.
And so we're just so I want you just to kind of take this, whatever things apply to you, just as you're sitting
apply
and listening, just apply it, just say, okay, Lord, I see where I messed up, I see where I blew it, or I see where they blew it, I see where the other person messed up,
or just even see where the other person is coming from, why they think what they think, why they do what they do.
The material that we're about to go over with you comes from various resources. So we want to take the time to show you where we get our material from. Carol and I have received training and preparation. We've been teaching some of this material for many years, so we can't take credit for it, for all of it. Some of it has been our own personal experience. Some has been things that we have written. But for the most part, some of our references are, we're going to take you through what's called the Circle of Contentment from Drs. Clarence and Jill Walker. We're going to talk about oneness in marriage from Dr. Dennis Rainey, where many of the things that we are covering, various aspects, come from a training that Carol and I received from the Center of Biblical Counseling. They have an association called the American Center of Christian Counselors, and we went through a 30-week course called Caring for People God's Way. There's a book, a very, very special book called Love and Respect, written by Dr. Emerson and Sarah Eggers. And then there's lots of material that Carol and I have gathered through the years, back in the time when we used to be pastors of teenagers, from the Medical Institute of Sexual Health. I wrote a book called What Now? And in chapter 9 of that book, there's a section in there called Repairing Broken Places. So some of what we're going to talk about comes from there. And today we're going to just begin talking about relationships. Are you ready? Okay. Well, first of all, when a couple, or when a man and a woman meet, there's the stage that's called meeting and greeting. That's kind of the face to, it's just kind of FaceTime. You just encounter one another. You come in contact.
Hi, hello. Person. You're being introduced to one another. First impressions.
Yeah. And really the purpose of the meeting and greeting stage, that's just to get a relationship started. You don't know how far it's going to go. Don't even know if you ever even going to see each other that often. If I could use a reference, if you remember your high school days, or those of you that went to college, or if you're on the job that you're currently on, there are some people that you see them every day, but you wouldn't necessarily say that you have a relationship with them. You have a working relationship.
They're acquaintances.
Yeah, they're just acquaintances. But when you met each other, or when you were introduced to that person, it was the start of some type of relationship, even if that relationship is strictly the fact that we have to work together. Occasionally I have to talk to you or get information from you, or I have to share information with you to get the job done, or get projects done, get assignments completed. But either way, it's still the start of a relationship when you first met that person. All right, then the next stage is called knowing and growing. And you can, and every relationship goes through this stage. This is where you begin to understand another person, the way they talk. There's kind of this is just a stage of,
you find out if this person has brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
You try to find places of where you
share some things.
Things in common.
Yeah, and so again, there's some limited bonding in this stage. You may exchange phone numbers as you become more and more comfortable with this person. You kind of talk about likes and dislikes. Still very, very casual,
very surface,
and in some ways, this person begins to obtain some level of influence in your life and some levels of trust. And by that we mean you may ask them if a certain movie's coming out, or if they saw it, you may ask them what they thought about that movie, and you may go see it just because they liked it. In other words, you trusted their opinion about enough that you would go see the movie because they liked the movie. So again, it's nothing major, nothing big, but at least there's enough of a relationship there that they have some influence in your life. There's a little bit of a level of trust, or like they might like a certain restaurant, a new restaurant opens up, and they may tell you about it, and so you may go to the restaurant because this person recommended it, or different things on the menu within the restaurant. You may try it because they liked it. Again, it's nothing deep.
Right.
No, nothing serious is really going on.
You're choosing to trust this person to a certain extent.
Yeah, just very, very limited level of trust. But then let's just say that some of the things that they recommended, you did like it. Or even if you didn't like it, you came back and you talked about it. You talked about why you didn't like it.
Or you at least found out that what the things that you asked them about were actually true.
Yeah. And so now you start moving into what's called the affirming and confirming level stage of the relationship. This is where you begin to validate a person, and that basically means that you declare that in your mind, it's really on a subconscious level, that there's something really authentic and real and genuine here between the two of us.
Yeah, this person is real. This person has shown integrity towards you.
Yeah. And so this is the stage of strengthening of the relationship. That's where you begin to make the relationship a little bit stronger. This person begins to move into more of an exclusive level with you, meaning there are things that you talk about with this person that you don't talk about with anybody else. There are things that you begin to talk about your past or disclose things about yourself, and they also begin to do that too. So you really start moving into a serious, little bit more stronger bonding here.
Yeah, you start sharing your opinions about things, even about other people. You know this person is not going to break your confidence.
Yeah, and also this is a stage where you begin to throw out a little bit more encouraging words to that person. You like the way they were dressed today. You like the way they sing, or the way that they talk. You like the way they walk. You even feel better when they walk into the room or when they come to work. Things like that. In other words, there's something different happening here than just how it was when we was in knowing and growing. Now, the only thing about it, when you reach this level
stage
of this stage where there's affirming of each other and there's confirming, and you got all these encouraging words and actions and gestures. Sometimes people begin to play with one another.
You can actually tease, and there are touching, yes.
And sometimes you may hug and things like that, and you still haven't gone into anything intimate, but there's a little bit more gestures and the sparks. I can put it that way. You begin to feel the sparks. You know what I mean? But here's a tremendous caution, and so many people, so many of us have made this mistake that I'm about to talk about now, that we're about to talk about. We caution you that not to enter into an intimate relationship at this stage, just because this person is really
affirming
you,
confirming you feel good when you're with this person. This person takes up for you, encourages you, builds you up. Be careful.
Be very careful, because this is at that stage where the strong passion and the desire for intimacy really, really increases, because we've actually been made that way. That's physiologically,
it is very natural,
and psychologically how we're made. When you start bonding with someone and you want to express how you feel and the exclusivity of our relationship, and now I want to be with you and nobody else. Well, the very natural, normal outflow of that is an intimate relationship. They actually begin to enter into a sexual relationship with this person. Now, here's the reason why we caution you about entering into an intimate relationship, and that's because commitments and foundations haven't been established yet. In other words, now you're moving into intimacy without the commitment. In fact, many times, I don't want to just stereotype, but I want to say this to you, young men that are listening to me. And there's a tendency, more of a likely, of the young lady thinking that you are you're entering to this intimate relationship because you're committed to her.
Right.
For you, you just simply expressing that I like being with you.
I enjoy your
And I
company.
enjoy your company, and I enjoy your body.
Yes.
But that's not what she's thinking. And all the young ladies, you can kind of look at around the room and say, yeah, that's right. I'm thinking if I'm giving myself to you that way, that you're committed
You're
to me.
serious about
You're serious
this
about
relationship.
this relationship.
That is not just going to stop at intimacy.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that all guys think that way. I don't want to stereotype that, because it can be the other way around. Young ladies, sometimes there are young ladies you're just wanting to have fun, and you like the feeling of being with this guy, but you aren't thinking about marriage. And he may be thinking the only reason why I'm moving into this level of intimacy with you is because I'm planning on marrying you. Now you can see why there's a problem, because now you've moved into an intimate relationship, and one person or the other is thinking that there's more of a commitment here.
Yeah.
Or one person or the other is thinking there's more of a foundation here. And so that's why the conflicts and everything comes up, and that is the very next stage, because
of relationship.
And it's not the intimacy that causes the conflict, but the issue is that if you've entered into the intimate relationship before understanding what
where
our
this is,
commitment
yes, where this is going to actually lead,
what our foundation is, then man, you're headed for conflict anyway, because the next stage of a relationship is conflict and confronting, because the closer you get to somebody, now you do start having the issues of things that we disagree about,
right?
Our different values
right.
that we really have, and
how we see our roles with one another.
Yeah. And so in the conflict and confronting stage, this is where it's almost like a contest, because there's a struggle. We start striking together. We start conflicting. We start battling. There's a collision.
Values, opinions about things.
In other words, you see this on the screen. You see it says there to border on, or to face with a challenge, or to oppose. And what's happening here is that now each of you, all of us, we have these internal boundaries, and we have these lines that we don't want, or we're not prepared for anybody to cross into. Another way for me to put it is, you may have different rooms in your house that you don't like for anybody to walk into, or you don't allow anybody just to walk in there without giving you a chance to prepare for that. Just like in the natural, some of you may keep a messy bedroom or a messy bathroom. You don't want anybody just walking in there. Well, what happens in this stage of a relationship, this person can start talking about stuff and doing things that are violating areas within you, and that person doesn't even know they're doing it.
Right.
They don't even have any idea, because to them, this
is normal for that person.
This is normal for me to talk about these things. This is normal for me to do this or that. And unfortunately, a lot of times you don't find out about these things about a person until after you've already entered into an intimate relationship. So you've gone in and you've slept together, you've been together, but then after you do that, then you find out that this person has no plans of ever having children. Right. And you may have always, all your life, couldn't wait to the day that you can have children. And you were just intimate with somebody who you find out after the fact they don't want to have children. And so now you got a major battle.
Major conflict.
And so, and now one person feels cheated, feels used, because it's like, well, why didn't you tell me that before we slept together? Well, they wouldn't. It didn't even occur. Nobody wouldn't have even known to talk about that,
right?
Because it's one of those things that you should have talked about
before intimacy.
But you didn't even think about it, because you were so starry-eyed and you felt good, and there was affirmation and confirmation, and the words and the gestures and the actions and the flowers and the cards and the surprise dinners and all those things, and nobody talked about stuff like that. What are your plans for life? What are we going to do? How do you feel about children? What do it can be simple things. There are some simple things that can really blow up a relationship. Like, what do you see my role as a wife in this marriage?
Right.
What do you see my role as a husband? Yeah. Do you men are
just
thinking,
the simple things. Who's going to take out the trash?
Yeah, who's going to take out the trash? Who's going to cook when we come home from work?
Who's going to wash the dishes?
Who's going to make up the bed and keep the house clean? Who's going to vacuum? And so if you're thinking she's going to do it, and she's going to look at you and look like, say what?
Excuse me.
And so you haven't talked about any of that stuff, but you didn't slept together. And now, after the fact, you're finding out how each of you really thinks about stuff.
Because you were raised differently.
Yeah.
You came from two different households, did things two different ways.
Absolutely.
And now you're coming together and trying